Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Passion, Purpose, and Possibilities. How's everyone doing today? Hope everyone's doing well. Welcome to Friday morning. We have with us Morgan. How are you?
Hey, Kenny, I'm doing well. How are you doing today?
Awesome. Thanks for taking the time to jump on this beautiful Friday morning. So if you wouldn't mind, give us a little introduction. Tell us who you are, what you do, what you're about.
Yeah, so I'm kind of like a serial entrepreneur, Morgan Mckell. For the last 10 years, I've had multiple businesses. My claim to fame, if you will, is I started a cell phone repair company here in Utah and grew that to 14 stores across 3 states. I ended up selling that in 2018. And inside of there, I fell in love with marketing, digital marketing. It was really cool how you could run an ad on Facebook or do some cool stuff with Google and see a direct result in clients. And so I started Monarch Social um, in 2019, January 2019. So now I have two offices for digital marketing, one here in Salt Lake City, where I'm at right now, and then I have a second office up in Pocatello, Idaho, and I have a full staff. And we do everything from websites to Google Ads, to Google SEO, Facebook ads, videography, all sorts of stuff to help businesses gain leads. So that's what I'm all about.
That's awesome. And we'll just jump right in. What gave or who or what gave you permission to go for it with
I
your cell
think,
phone repair and with your marketing ads?
yeah. So for the cell phone repair stuff, me and my buddy, he's quite heavily tattooed, and he had lost his job, and his wife was like 3 months pregnant at the time, and he couldn't get a job here in Utah. It was really hard for him, and he had applied all over. And I was an EMT at the time. I was like writing on ambulances and stuff. And he came to me and he goes, "Dude, I have this idea." And I was kind of going through a divorce myself, and we were kind of at these low point. And he goes, "Dude, I have this business idea. Like, let's fix phones." And he goes, "I have knowledge in purchasing." He was a purchasing manager, and so he had some contacts and everything. And we just said, "Screw it," and we went all in. And so he got some student loans, and I sold a really nice car of mine, and we took the money and we went and started a cell phone repair store. And I had no idea how to fix phones at the time, but and he had a little bit of knowledge how to do it. And that's how we started IQ Repair, and that's now called Fix It Mobile. So, and that's still around today. You can see that all over Utah, and they're in more states now than when I sold it. So, uh, but I think it was just kind of like the right time. And luckily for me, he was kind of like the brains behind it, and I got to learn a lot from him. When we first started, but we just went for it, man. And we said, screw it, let's just go all in. And we gambled on ourselves.
I love that you said a few things. You went for it.
Yeah.
You went all in, and you took a bet on yourself.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you didn't have really a whole lot of idea of what you were doing in the
Oh, yeah.
different fields.
Yeah, not at all. So, like back at the time, the Apple iPhone 3G and 3GS had just come out. And that was like the most common phone. And at first, we only started fixing Apple products. But when I said we don't know what we were doing, the very first iPad that we fixed was the very first iPad that we ever fixed. Like, we didn't want to say no to clients. And so we had this little hole in the wall shop that was like probably 700 square feet. And it was in Sandy, Utah, right by the old Laser Quest down there. And our first month, before we even had parts in, we had people walking in because our signage said, "Hey, we'll fix your phone." And we had people walking in that first month. We did over like 10 grand that first month. And then we realized really quickly, holy crap, we found something. And call it luck or hard work, but whatever. But we didn't know what the hell we were doing. We had to like learn along the way. So, but it was a great experience.
Oh yeah, and that's so applicable to so many things because unfortunately that's what stops a lot of people in different steps. Because they don't know the next step. They don't know every single thing from start to finish. You know,
Yeah.
So
Most times,
unfortunately,
most
sorry.
times you got to fail forward, and that fear will hold a lot of people back. But I think that there's people out there that aren't scared of failure because they know that it just means you're going to be better. And I think that as young, dumb, tattooed kids, I don't know if we knew any better than just, hey, let's just fail and figure it out. We had this saying that we'd always said, let's just suck at it. Let's just suck it through it, And so we sucked through it for a long time, and then we tightened up the processes and procedures as we went. We didn't have to have it perfect when we started. We just started and then adjusted the cells along the way. So it was fun.
Yeah, I like that. And it ties right in because you mentioned you repair Apple products and other devices because, Apple, everybody knows Apple. Love them, hate
Yeah.
them, whatever your feeling is for them. Everybody knows Apple. But they're
Mm-hmm.
constantly making improvements, constantly making
Mm-hmm.
upgrades. You get a notification on your phone like a couple times a month, it seems. New update coming out, installed during off hours or whatever.
Yeah, like what we saw too is, I think there's more people that are ready to pay their phone bill before their mortgage sometimes, or their rent. Their phone, like if you go without your phone, you feel so naked. If like, you don't have that connection to the world, and it's just it was such a piece on people that I think that's why we were pretty successful too. Is just people need their phones, and they didn't. Where we had to start too, honestly, one of our biggest hurdles was educating the public that you could fix your phone. I look at phones kind of like cars now. If your windshield breaks on your car, you're not going to go get a whole new car. And that's when cell phones came out. That was kind of the mentality, like, oh, I broke my phone, I got to go switch it, got to get a new one. And now we had to educate the people, like, you can fix these. If your battery dies, we can just put a new battery in. If your ear speaker goes out, we can just replace the speaker. If your screen breaks, we just put a new screen on. And so there's a lot of educating the people when we had that business.
Yeah, and it's it's funny how it comes back to that on almost any industry. With me in the financial services, it comes back to the educating. You know,
Mm-hmm.
oh no, this fell apart. Now I'm doomed. No, if you make this small tweak and this small tweak, you're just fine.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, so that's awesome. And going back to what you said earlier, you guys just decided to go for it.
Yeah.
So many people are scared to take that first jump in the pool, if you will, or whatever.
Yeah,
And
yeah, I think there's a lot of things that hold people back. Like I said, I think there 9 times out of 10, I think, people want everything to be perfect. They think they need everything. They need the perfect website, the perfect logo, the perfect, customer experience, whatever it is. And we didn't. We didn't have a website for a while when we started ours, and then then we got a website up and going. But I think fear of like perfection and not just knowing that you're going to suck at it. Like your first podcast is going to suck. Your first month of business might suck, and not being afraid of that, but just going for it anyway. So, but yeah, I think a lot of things hold people back, but I think that's a major one.
why do you think that is? Why do you think people are afraid that they need to have it perfect before they start?
Well, I think it's not only a pride thing, but it's a customer service thing. Like even when I started Monarch Social, I want any client that we have a great experience with us. And so if you don't feel ready to take a customer from a lead to making a sell to giving them the service that they are paying for and performing for them, I think there's a fear of, oh well, I might lose that customer. My name's tied to that brand, and so people don't want to be tarnished by that or have a bad experience with you. Obviously, you want to provide the best things ever for your clients, right? And so I think a lot of people want that perfection, or they fear not starting because they're like, man, I don't know all the answers. And I think that there's a huge difference between really successful entrepreneurs and really kind of mediocre entrepreneurs, is just knowing that things aren't going to be perfect sometimes. And you can make adjustments along the way, and you can course correct along the way. And I think if you had that mindset, I think you'd get a lot more stuff done. Rather than planning for 5 months to go start something, I tell everyone all the time, if you have an idea, go start it and figure it out along the way. And that will get you way further. You'll be so much further ahead in a year than the person who sat around trying to get everything perfect on day one.
Absolutely. they're wanting all the ducks in a row, all the pieces in place, whatever. And I think to go along with that, a lot of times is fear of others. Let's say I had a social media company as well. You know, oh no, I'm not as good as Morgan. Oh no, what if my product doesn't do as good as this? Or whatever. It could be they compare themselves to others so often, and it holds them back. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
I'm of the belief that you want to have the high standards and you want the good customer service and things like that, and you want to do your best. But and if Morgan's doing this, then and it's a good idea, then maybe I'll implement it as far as like a, achieving that higher next level sort of thing. But if I'm doing better than me yesterday, then I'm going to do good in my business.
Yeah, I think some people can get very paralyzed with that comparison problem. You're comparing yourself to a company that's been around for 5 years, and you're in year one. You're obviously, it's going to be a very different thing. I think it's healthy to kind of look at other companies and maybe have some standards and say, okay, this is a standard in the industry. But when you compare your chapter one to another company's chapter 20, I mean, there's no point of doing that. And unfortunately, a lot of people do that. I mean, that's unfortunate. So, but comparison is a problem. I mean, I found myself doing that too. I want to be this big old company, and I see these other marketing companies and what they're doing and how big they are, and I have to remind myself, like, hey, like, you're doing good. Like, what we did last year was way more than we did the year before, and we're on an upward progress trail. And we have these big things. So comparing yourself is a slow hell for sure. And use it sparingly. Use like I said, there should be some benchmarks. I don't think it's completely unhealthy just to say, put all the blinders on and just do your own thing. And if you're not doing what industry standard is, but keep yourself accountable to your clients by trying to perform the best, I think would be more healthy.
Yeah, exactly. Like even with me with the show when I started it, my first episode looked like crap, but I
Yeah, I think
started.
yeah, I think that same. We have a podcast too, and our very first podcast, it was like, okay, it was decent, but we look at where we're at now, and it's night and day. Because you're going to get that experience, you're going to get feedback, you're going to get better stuff along the way.
And I think that ties into this whole thing ties into what you and I were talking about off camera. We just had New Year's kind of um, wearing off, if you will, unfortunately. And everybody sets their goals end of December, beginning of January and stuff. And then February, they start to do this.
Yeah, for sure.
So, how do you keep the fire going? How do you keep after your goals when the newness, the shiny object of it?
Yeah, so like one of the things that I've incorporated in my life, Kenny, is I have a really solid morning routine. And I think that there's people that will say something, let's say it's New Year's, or they're going to start a new goal, or they're going to start a new habit, whatever it is. And they'll say it to themselves. But if you're not writing it down and seeing it, I have a client of mine, and I literally just told him to do this because I do it. If you look at my bathroom mirror, I have 3x5 cards and post-it notes with the things that I want to always focus on. So whether they're a goal or a positive affirmation, my bathroom mirror has post-it notes on it, and 3x5 cards of different things. So a couple of things that keep them fresh in my mind, where it doesn't just sizzle out, is every morning I review my goals, and I have long-term goals, I have short-term goals, and I have weekly goals. And constantly seeing those things, whether it's even in my bedroom, I have big posters of things in my bedroom, but constantly seeing it, so you're always focused on it, has been a huge help for me. Reviewing your goals weekly is a huge thing, if not every morning, when you're getting ready for your day. And so keeping them very close to you has helped me not just you have things sizzle out if I want to do something, but having them top of mind where you can see those things, you're saying those to your things, you're writing those things. That's not going to sizzle out. And so that's something that I've done. And I see your whiteboards there. And my last house, I moved to a new place. So I don't have all my whiteboards up, but I have a lot of whiteboards. I think whiteboards are probably an entrepreneur and a business person's best friend, where you can write goals, you can write things, the thoughts that come up. My house, is usually covered in whiteboards. My office, my hallway, my room, I have whiteboards everywhere so I can write stuff down.
Yeah. Yeah. This whiteboard changes sometimes weekly, sometimes daily and stuff. And you can see it back here. I've got some quotes. And what you can't see off camera over here is just one of my vision boards.
Yeah.
And like you said, I've got things on my desk, post-it notes, notepad. How
Yeah.
often do you review? Well, not review, but like revise or change or edit goals.
Yeah, I think it depends. I don't have like a set thing where I'm like, oh man, every month I'm going to review these and do this. But kind of like I said, I review them daily, and if I have to kind of course correct, or if I see I'm not on track because it's an unrealistic goal or something like that, and there's just no way I'm going to hit it. Okay, well then what's a realistic goal? And sometimes you have to do that if you get closer to those dates. But even just seeing them daily, like I said, if in your planner or your binder, and where I write them down, I try to write every morning and write what I want to accomplish, what I'm going to focus on, and things like that. I think since it's just so top of mind that they kind of just morph every day, And like I said, it's not like I every 6 months I try to revise them. In the business though, it's a little different. So and that's just personal goals for Morgan. In the business, it's a little different, and so about quarterly we run through we run through kind of like a SWOT analysis of ourselves, and we do our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and takeaways or trade-offs, for our business. And we try to do that quarterly, so our business has pretty set in stone, realistic goals of where we're failing, what we're doing better at, and what we're doing better at, and what we want to accomplish, and what we want to like what goals or numbers that we want to hit, And we try to do that quarterly in our business, me and my business partner. So it's a little different in business, but my personal stuff, I kind of just it's a weekly thing, man. It's a daily thing. I'm seeing those things, so I know how to adjust almost weekly. So that works for me, at least.
Yeah, and that's also an important point that your goals are yours. They're not somebody else's. They're not mine. They're not your business partners. Your goals are yours, and excuse me. And you need to tweak them, review them, revise them in a way that works for you.
Yeah, for sure.
How you read them and revise them is going to be different than me, and
Yeah.
different than this person and stuff. There might be some similarities and things like that, but again, it's that comparison thing. There's some this is a good idea. Maybe I'll try implementing that, see how that works. But
Yeah.
it's I'm not as good as him. My goals aren't as big as his, so my goals aren't as good as his. There doesn't need to be any of that stuff.
Yeah, one of the things one of the things that's helped me too is having like a coach or a mentor, and they can keep you kind of on track too, because a lot of times we can sell ourselves short, and we don't really understand our full potential. But when you have like a mentor who's been there and done that before you, sometimes they can help you set better goals or bigger goals too, because they know what's possible. If you would have asked Morgan what's possible in 2010, it would have been completely different of what I think is possible today. Because just my standards, my vision was so much more limited. My capacity wasn't there. I didn't have the tools or experience to even think about what could be possible. And so I think sometimes it's really important or beneficial to have a mentor or someone like that they can kind of see those goals for you too, whether that's a business professional consultant or business mentor, or even just a personal one. I think that they can help you with those goals too and stay on track. And they can help you refine and redefine those goals and visions, because they've been there, done that. So I think that could help people too in life.
Absolutely, and they're going to help you, bring out the best in your potential. Not necessarily tell you what your goals should be, but give you more direction. I think you could do better than that, or I think you've got
Sure.
more in you than you think you do, kind of
Yeah.
thing. And your goal doesn't have to be same as their goal, but it doesn't mean it's any less.
Yeah, for sure.
And then reviewing those every day. I think I know I used to get stuck or under the impression that we just can review them and change them once a year.
Mm.
But over the past few years, I've discovered that's not true. I've changed mine a couple times a day in some cases.
Yeah, when you do change them that often, that's so when I get to New Year's, there's not much that changes for Morgan. There's not like all of a sudden these things, all these new things appear. Um, it's different in the business, but for personal, like there's not a lot of things that change when New Year's comes around because I just know where I'm going and I just don't look at a calendar year. I think like a lot of people, I think my goals are always changing and I have things in mind that we're going to do and just keep getting better. For the business, it's different because I love, seeing how much we've done and how far we've gone and what we can accomplish this year and we can set those things up. But at the beginning of the year, when I saw these New Year's resolutions and people talking about that, that doesn't really happen for me. I already know what I'm doing. I know I'm reviewing my goals all the time and they're changing with what I do. And so when New Year's came, there's nothing really different that I did or set new goals like this year I want to do this. I've been doing that weekly. I've been looking at my goals and seeing what I want to accomplish now, not just because it's a new calendar year. So that was a silly thing for me.
Yeah, it's so true. And then, like you said before, it's still on your mind. It's always at the top of your mind, and you're excited about it. It's like if you tell a 10-year-old you're going to Disney World. You're gonna talk about it like all the time. They're gonna start picking out what rides they want to go on, who they want to take pictures with, what they're gonna pack, blah blah blah. And then you're gonna talk about it every day and the excitement that feels gonna be there. And it's in a way the same for goals, or at least for me and stuff. Because if it's on your mind, you're excited about it. You look at the pictures, you're imagining yourself there, whatever that goal is. And then the drive is going to stay there.
Sure.
After February and March and April hit, when usually they go like this, for me, it's going like this. Sorry, my.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that can work like you said, like because it's going to be top of mind. They're going to get super excited for it and think about all those things. And that's another thing that is really interesting. I know like a lot of people that do really well with attaching their goals or visions to positive things, and I know a lot of people that attach their goals to negative things, and both can work at different times in your life. And what I mean by that is like some people will say, man, if I don't do this, I'm not going to be able to pay my rent, or I'm not going to be able to do XYZ. I'm not going to be able to do that. And other people say, man, if I do that, I'll be able to go to Disneyland. I'll be able to get a new car. And so you can attach goals in positive or negative ways, and it works for different types of people, and they work for different circumstances. In business, even like man, if we don't sell or sign up 2 more clients, like we're not going to make payroll. That's a really good motivator to go get a sell, right? And that's a negative thing. But if we say the same instance, there's the same person that would say, man, if I sign up 5 more clients, then I can hire another person, and that's a positive thing. And so those work both ways, like when you're looking at Disneyland and they're getting excited for it, and then you might motivate them the same way, like, hey, if you're not good, then we're not going to go to Disneyland, or hey, like you might be grounded from that. And so it's just interesting how people attach their motivators to different things. But you can use those interchangeably sometimes for where you're at in life, and I've done it myself.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And different things work for different people. Like sometimes the negative association will work for me, and sometimes it doesn't. Or
Yeah.
sometimes, I've tweaked more where it's negative. Then I'm like, okay, what's the opposite? You said can't hit payroll. Like I want to go beyond payroll, so it's going to be like a spring that goes.
Exactly. And so sometimes you got to start somewhere, and you can attach that goal, or you can attach that motivating driver to something, like I said, negative or positive. But as long as you're moving forward, I think that whatever one works for you, go for it.
Oh, that's awesome. Awesome. This has been a great conversation. If you could give 1 or 2 more bits of advice to people to keep their goals going, keep after their dreams, what would you say?
2 things: dream big and execute. So dream big, I think we kind of talked about it a little bit about not realizing your full potential. I think sometimes we get stuck and we just get in the minutia of things and we're kind of stagnant. So don't be scared to dream big. If whatever that is, opening more locations, or even if it's losing weight, dream big. Try to just shoot way past your mark. And then the other thing is just execute. Stop trying to plan everything. Stop trying to worry about every little thing, but just go execute. Just go do, and you'll get way further in goals, life, business, relationships if you just go do it. Stop thinking about it. Stop procrastinating. Get out there. Get your hands dirty. Get uncomfortable and grow. That's what I'd say.
Awesome. And where can people find you if they wanted to reach out to you?
Yeah, I'm active on pretty much every social media. So the Morgan Mckell on Instagram, Morgan Mckell on Facebook. If you want to see what Monarch Social does, that's monarchsocialbrand.com. And yeah, people find me everywhere.
Awesome. Appreciate you. And everyone that tunes into this live or the replay, thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions for either one of us, please feel free to reach out, and go live your passion, fulfill your purpose, and explore those possibilities.